Why are you writing a book now?
I got bored. Sometimes I'm answering the same questions. Better to find them in a book. There is a certain need in the market for a book that talks about entrepreneurship in Africa by an African guy.
What does it take to build like a unicorn in Africa?
Jumia was supposed to be a unicorn. It was engineered to be a unicorn. But with time, what we started realizing is that they started expanding into different countries, but then they started closing offices in each of the countries. We should not see Africa as a whole. Africa is a simple labeling for something that is very complex. When people think about Africa, they think about it as this big market, but it's not the case. Tunisia is not the same as Nigeria.
This is my favorite part. What challenges do you face when it comes to payments?
I'm not Jesus, so I'm not gonna solve all issues. The best place to be running a consultancy focused on Africa is in Dubai or in Turkey. Because now you can go from Dubai to Turkey and you can have direct flights to everywhere in Africa.
What kind of founders do you think win in this market? What traits?
The worst one is the one who have high visions, but bad in operation. I don't know if, if I answer this, should I answer my own question or no?
Hi, welcome Khalil.
Hello.
I know we go way back about a month now, right?
Yeah, to some extent. 2 weeks.
Yes, so Khalil, we met through Jonathan. Jonathan introduced you to, well, he told me to message you on LinkedIn, and you just happened to arrive in Amsterdam from Africa. You have quite a vast background, a wide background when it comes to entrepreneurship in Africa. And I got a couple of questions that I would love to learn from you, and I think the audience watching would also love to learn from you. So maybe you can just tell a little bit more about yourself and your background before we begin.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Divine, and great to be here and great to be in the first episode. I would say it's episode 0, because as engineers, we start counting from 0.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's the best transition to say I'm an engineer. By background, I studied engineering, and I studied computer science engineering, and then I moved to a mix of AI and entrepreneurship, but I never was an engineer. I never worked as an engineer. In fact, I did what most engineers don't do, which is working in business. So I have been basically through the last 8 years, I've been working with startups and working with entrepreneurs and working with investors and accelerators, and basically helping strategize, connecting the dots, etc. To be quite frank, in one sentence, what I do is like I help startups fundraise, I help them grow, and I help them scale. And most of the startups I have been working on are African startups.
Oh, amazing. I think you're kind of underselling yourself there, because I know you also help a lot of investors with due diligence, like particularly investors coming into the African market fresh, or let's say they do not really understand the specific country, because Africa is quite huge. We have 54 countries, different kind of dynamics depending on the country. And you're also writing a book, correct me if I'm wrong. You're writing a book, and it's going to be coming out this month. So why did you write a book after like going around Africa? Why are you writing a book now?
Why I am writing a book? Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Some parts of it gets answered in the book itself. But first there is something that people say to me, which is like, why not you write something, like you write a book? There is a book inside of you to some extent. I've been writing for the last 10 years of my life, writing in English. English is my third language, technically. I'm Tunisian, so Arab is the first thing, French, and then English. And then somehow I found myself expressing more in English. But why writing a book? I would say it's more about the experience. So every time I go, every time people come, or startups or entrepreneurs or investors, usually they ask me about different things. And to be quite honest, the first reason is I got bored. Sometimes I'm answering the same questions, so it's way better better to find them in a book. There is a certain need in the market for a book that talks about entrepreneurship in Africa by an African guy. And I guess this is where usually things have not been clear for us, because most of us are using, even European, are using the American model of building companies and building startups, which is the lean methodology, build, measure, learn, which inherently have a problem. Like, you need to fundraise a lot to be able to build, measure, learn, and then you can fail, etc. For us, it's quite different, I would say. And then there are other also personal reasons, which is also I wanted a version of myself, like a younger version of myself, to be able to read the book. I think it reduces the path, because by the end of the day, for me, I needed to test new things, to test every time, to go and say, oh, maybe it's like this, or maybe it's like that. And at some point, a book helps in kind of summarizing this. And then finally, the last thing, I think by time when you travel too much, you meet also different people. There is also that component of trying to share that with people, and usually it's not really helpful. I was talking earlier. I said last year I did 27 flights across Africa, and usually most people cannot do that. For me, it happened because of work, because of other different things, because I'm curious. But sometimes you want someone who compresses you the story and tells you the real narrative, based on your background, based on how you live it, not based on someone else's reality.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'd say I'm not sure how amazing my voice is, but perhaps I might be doing a voiceover for your book when it's out, because, there are people that like to read the physical copy, and the Gen Zs like to watch videos or listen to something. So I don't know if you've considered that. But my next question is, what does it take to build like a unicorn in Africa? Why I say this, it's a difficult one. But we're seeing more and more unicorns coming out of Africa. Like, Africa is getting to where India was 10 years ago. I learned this from a recent event I attended. Now we have around 14 to 16 unicorns in Africa. And it's actually taking shorter amount of time to attain the unicorn status. So what does it take to do that?
To be quite honest, I think the question, I think one of the questions that we should ask is, does it matter or not? And does it matter building a unicorn or not? I think that's the first thing. Unicorn, for the people who are not, for the people watching who don't know what unicorn is a company that raised roughly $1 billion of investment. That's what a unicorn is. And usually we have been having few, but with time, this have been increasing. We did not have even substantial acquisition in Africa. So that's the first thing. But then the question about what does it take to build a unicorn is a bit of a tricky question, because it makes people think that the goal is building a unicorn. And I don't agree with that goal that much, honestly. I think it certainly depends from what you are building. Certainly unicorns make massive scale, transformative impact, and usually they hire a lot and they create jobs, etc., and they can use them to leverage the economy. But then there is a bit of a misconception around unicorn, which is that you need to build a unicorn. With time now, what we are seeing, at least the good news, if you want to build a unicorn, now it's getting better. Now we have much more better funding vehicles and more investors who are interested, at least patient investors. For the people who are skeptical, like me, you have also the right to be skeptical, because Jumia was supposed to be a unicorn. Jumia was built by Rocket Internet, and it was engineered to be a unicorn. Like, they had, technically they fundraised $1 billion, and they started building, saying that e-commerce in Africa will be popping, etc. But with time, what we started realizing is that they started expanding into different countries, but then they started closing offices in each of the countries. So sometimes the problem of building in Africa a unicorn is a bit removes a variable that is very important, which is what does it mean to scale in Africa? And I think that's kind of the more tricky question to ask, because to be able to scale in Africa, as you said earlier, Africa is like 54 countries, and usually what I say is like Africa is a simple labeling for something that is very complex. Is like you have all. When people think about Africa, they think about it as this big market, but it's not the case. Tunisia is not the same as Nigeria. Rwanda is not the same as Kenya, even though they are like neighboring countries. So at some point, one of the things that we should do is basically be able to say, okay, like this is the difference, and also be able to see that Africa should be treated in a way that's countries rather than, or even regions. Like one of the things that people don't know about Africa is like, when you think about North Africa and you think about Sub-Saharan Africa, the Sahara in the middle is bigger than the Mediterranean. And this is why Tunisia is more close culturally to Europe than to Chad or Niger, which is just below us, geographically, I mean. So that's one of the things that people usually don't understand is like, Africa is too big to be able to build a unicorn in it. So it's way easier to build a unicorn in East Africa or build a unicorn in North Africa or even in Southern Africa or Central Africa or West Africa than trying to conquer everything. And usually this is where the sketchy part is. Yeah, I hope I answered the question to some extent.
You brought an interesting, should I say, fantastic perspective, which is, while you call it Africa as a whole, it is quite huge. Compared to Europe, you have here in Europe 350 million people. In Africa, 1.4 billion, and in the next 30 years, we're going to be having around over 2 billion people, right? We have a very young population as well. So you can actually achieve unicorn status picking one country, one market in Africa, rather than trying to expand across the entire continent in order to become a unicorn.
Yeah, true to some extent. One of the things that you even also should consider, even when thinking about Europe, now Europe is getting back to saying it's the European market. With all the geopolitics that is happening, it was not the case that much. Like Europe have been a long project that is being built geopolitically, trying to include countries, trying to build all the politics, and you have mobility that is way accessible. Like from Netherlands, from where we are right now, we can go to Spain easily through a bus or through a car, and you don't have passport checks, etc. This is not the case for Africa. We are not there yet. And this is why some of the things, like if mobility is not there, if distribution is not quite accessible, okay, certainly there is mobility of people around. Like if you find Kenyans in Rwanda, you find Nigerians in Benin, you find all of that. But that's one of the things. The other part is like the borders have been drawn in a way that is funny. So at least when you think about how Botswana, they should have some part in South Africa, or the vice versa. Or when you think even about Nigeria and how some of the people are living in Cameroon and some of the others are not living there. Like you have an English population who is in Cameroon, and they consider themselves Cameroonian sometimes. It certainly depends. There is like few things that we did not solve yet to be able to think about Africa as a whole. And I think at some point there is this narrative being pushed by the West that is Africa, 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 but we are not there yet. I think I think we are still. We should not see Africa as a whole. We should see it by regions or by countries or by cultures that are the same.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective. My next question is, what do outsiders misunderstand about the African market? When I say outsiders, I'm talking from your background in investment, so dealing with investors from outside Africa.
First, is it African market or African startups?
Both African markets, African startups.
I think there is a slight difference even when we are considering African startups, because as of now, there is no correct definition of what an African startup means. And usually, I was also doing research at some point about, like academic research about African entrepreneurship, and usually there is this gap in academia about African startups, which is what makes an African startup an African startup? Is it the founder is African? Or is it the market is African? Or is it the operation is African? Okay, let me give you the quiet differences in between both. And this is what outsiders usually don't understand about African startups to some extent. So if African founders, you can be operating a company in the UK, and you are African, you are Nigerian, you are Tunisian, you are African. So some consider it as African startups. You can have all your operation in the sense of the second case, which is having all of your operation in Africa. You have a team that you are hiring, but your market is European or your market is American. And usually founders, sometimes the founders are African, sometimes are not. But usually it brings the cheap, to some extent, cheap labor, let's say, that you are operating from Nigeria, for instance. And then the other thing is that the market is African. So to some extent, you are serving clients who are in Africa. So those are kind of the three slight differences and nuances when we are saying African startups. African startup is a very big term, and usually I like to go into definition, and I try sometimes to understand what does it entail exactly. And yeah, most outsiders don't see this. They see African startup as a whole. They don't try to differentiate in between them. And this is very essential to some extent if you want to talk about investing in Africa, let's say. And then the other thing is, by African startups, sometimes we are treating all the startups like they are the same. So we are treating, even if the market is African, the operation is in Africa, the founder is African, even all those three, let's say, conditions are there. We have a Kenyan startup working in mobility, and then we have an Egyptian startup working on agri-tech. And those are, we cannot put those in the same labeling to some extent. But most people usually, when they try to see the macro image and the macro picture of all of this. But sometimes the devil is in the details.
Yes, I'd say perhaps that's an American and European problem, and it's the job of the founders a lot of time to kind of educate them. I was at an event about a couple of weeks ago. It was about educating European investors to better be equipped when getting into the African market.
And what was the key takeaway of the event?
The key takeaway of the event is it's like I'm breaking the Easter egg already. There's a question that I'm going to ask. So, exit strategy for investors, right?
Okay.
One, and then secondly, investors need to know that they have to spend longer time, right? They're investing for a longer period in Africa compared to when they're investing in America and stuff. And then when it comes to acquisition, one of the questions I'm going to ask you, it's quite different compared to the American market or the European market. Yeah, but another question is, you've been working with a lot of founders across Africa, multiple countries. What kind of founders do you think win in this market? Like, what traits, what drives do you see in them that you think makes them win?
Yeah, I would say, for me, I tried to ask the question to myself. I said, with whom, which people I can help the best. And I think there is this model that I try to come up with, even for myself. So sometimes, like, I work with the founder we can go, like, lately one founder went from $20,000 in revenue to 1 million ARR. But with other founders, I'm still the same person. I'm still doing the same support, trying to venture build and trying to advise exactly in the same way. But there is kind of not this result. So I was trying to break down this, and to some extent, I would say there is this matrix that I tried to create, which is on one side you have vision, and on the other you have the operation. So when you think about it, so the best one is someone who have high vision and high operation, and ideally they are coachable. At least from my side, this is what is a best founder for me. Like, I can support them in articulating better the vision. I can help them in more of the operational side and the blind spots, and this is the best case scenario. The worst one is not the one who have no vision and bad in operations. The worst one is the one who have high visions, but bad in operation. Because they can tell you all the stories of their life about how their market is going to change the narrative of Africa and the narrative of their continent and the status quo of the region and all of that. But in reality, they have issues in executing. And this is usually where most of the people who usually put the blame also on investors. Is like saying, oh, the investors are not given money, or the investors are not really thoughtful, etc. But if you have high operations, most of the investor will come to you. If you have a good company, the investor is trying to, they have money that they are willing to give in exchange for a fraction of the company, and the goal is to have ROI. If you have high operation, and if you are high on operation, you have high vision, usually you can win that. If you have low operation, usually your runway is very short. Like the company is gonna be like scrappy, and to have all those scrappy models, you are not living out of your company to some extent. And this is where I think it's important to see this nuance.
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question I want to get into is, based on your experience working with founders, what's the most difficult, what's the biggest challenge they face? Finding customers, right? Building trust, raising capital, or finding talent to hire?
I think what is harder, it depends from the background of the founder. Like, if I found a startup today myself, I know that I can pull capital. I have enough experience, I have enough background, I have enough track record, and I have enough connection that can help me in finding the money, finding the capital for that. So the question about what is harder is quite debatable question. It depends on you as a person, and it certainly depends on different areas. However, one of the things that I would say, like, in terms of raising capital, okay, that's one of the problems that founders face. However, I think the most problem that every founder faces across the continent, whether you have money, you don't have money, or whatever, is the legalities of it, and is going through the regulations. That's a challenge. Like, you cannot. Sometimes, if you have money, you can make things more flexible. In our countries, let's say, it certainly depends on which country is that. But yeah, that's one of the things. But so that's one. The second thing is that it's this blind spot that most people are not seeing, and like a challenge that most people are not seeing, which is talent. Because if you are now opening a startup, let's say on the continent, and you are trying to hire the best people, that's one of the things that you want if you want to build something scalable. And even if you have the money, you will find yourself competing for talents who are working remote. So you are competing already for the same talent, you are competing with a European company, or a Southeastern company, or a company from the US. Because by the end of the day, if they are smart enough and they have enough expertise, why should they work with you? And that's one of the things I guess most people usually don't see. Certainly the culture and the vision and building something of your own region, etc., might interest people, but sometimes that can be a certain challenge when hiring. But again, there is no, I would not say there is a certain one thing fits all. I think it's quite different from a founder to a founder. But again, legalities are one of the challenges and regulations. On the other side, we are still in trust economies, and you need to build that trust. It certainly depends from a founder to a founder. That's certainly the case.
Nice, well thought out. This is my favorite part, payment, because I love payment.
Okay.
I fell in love with payment not because how would I put it? I fell in love with payment because of how money can move from one place to another, just in thin air, right? And then you can perform certain transactions, purchase something from a mile away. So there is like a long story behind that. But in your travels across multiple countries, there are definitely different challenges. So what challenges did you face depending on the country? Let's say from like East Africa to North Africa to West Africa to southern part of Africa. What challenges do you face when it comes to payments?
I think the first thing is that there is no payment infrastructure, at least in terms of cards. Let's think about cards or bank cards, credit cards, basically. So one thing is that if you go to most countries, not all the countries will have credit card readers sometimes, at least on all the stores. So this is where you start seeing where the problem of payment exists. So even if you have a MasterCard or a Visa card, you have a challenge with paying. And this is your first encounter with it. But then certainly it's different from an economy to another. Like if you go to Rwanda, for instance, or Kenya, it's heavily mobile money. If you go to Kenya or Rwanda, certainly it's about mobile payment and it's about using MTN or Safaricom, etc. In other countries, it's still the same. I guess Nigeria is quite the same.
No, it's bank transfer. That's number one. And then cards and then mobile money, which is USSD, is dead. It's like they are doing its funeral at the moment, but.
Really? So it's in the graveyard.
Yeah, it's in the graveyard.
So yeah, but then you have also like it certainly depends. Like you see in Nigeria, it's quite different. In Tunisia, it's cash, heavily cash, and I think it's like Tunisia, Algeria, most of the countries.
North Africa.
Yeah. North Africa is heavily cash, and it depends from a site to another, and usually there is no payment. I would say. Someone who even connects all the payments all together. So there is this company called Glocal. They are Latin American who moved to the continent like a few years back, and as of now they have roughly 20 countries, I guess, if you check their website, 15 countries, and still they cannot cover everywhere. So basically what they are trying to provide is like payment integration where wherever you are, you can pay directly. And I think the payment issue will be probably solved in the next 5 to 10 years. It's certainly we saw a lot of fintechs. Coming from different countries, starting from Nigeria, but there is also other countries. Fintech in itself is a place where you have also too much. How can I say it? Too much resistance. Yeah. Because also the banks, like you are playing against the banks or you are playing against the telco, which is providing the mobile money. So at some point what you are basically doing is like fighting with all those monopolies that exist for the last 20 to 25 years, at least. Like some banks are 50 years old or 100 years old, etc. So that's kind of the challenge around payment in Africa, I would say, is that it's not centralized. It's still not digital that much yet, and still like there is. I think we have 10 years to solve it, or to be solved. And usually that's also brings some challenges for the startups themselves. Like I was a few years back, I was building an edtech, an educational technology startup. And to collect payment, it became a lot of hassle. At some point you be like, should I start
payment company?
Should I start a payment company? Because now you need to collect the cash from the people. Now you need to figure out few things, etc. That's one of the challenges. Like even now when we are launching the book, one of the things that we are having is like, we cannot be dealing with payment. That's not the focus. Probably later on we will find a way to make sure that it's available for other people. But for the time being, let's make sure that it's available for the diaspora, for the people who have international, like credit cards with international payment, etc. Because otherwise we will be building a whole shenanigans that we need to go through. Like, okay, for Tunisia, you need to get cash and you need to get bank transfer. Okay, for Rwanda, you need to get mobile money. For Nigeria, it's a bank transfer to another Nigerian bank account. For I don't know, for Senegal, it's about using Wave or Waze. Yeah. So now you have like, I'm not here to, I'm not Jesus, so I'm not gonna solve all issues. I will just focus on making my book and that's it. So at some point, put yourself in the position also of someone who is just selling a book. It's just a normal thing for anyone across the world. And now you have all those shenanigans. Even in the book, by the way, like one of the things that we discovered is that we had two routes. It's not only me, but I have a whole team and people who are reviewing the book, and shout out to them for being also helpful. There are also a set of volunteers who are also reviewing all of what we are doing. But then when we are working on the book, we had two routes. Is it a self-published book, or is it working with an editor and working with a publisher? When self-publishing is easy, it's about we working on all the distribution, etc. In books, if you consider books, it's about if you contact a publisher, the publisher basically takes 40 to 50% and allow me to work on the book. But then one of the challenges with that is basically that most of the publisher or editors who exist in the continent, they don't distribute in the continent. They only distribute in Nigeria, or they only distribute in Senegal, or only in Tunisia, or whatever. So I need to go to talk with someone in the UK to be able to publish the book across 54 countries. So that's one of the challenges. If you want to, it goes like the payment issue, you can see it everywhere almost. If you want to open, let's say, an advisory, if now I'm running, it's basically investment advisory and advisory for startups, the best place to be running a consultancy focused on Africa is in Dubai or in Turkey. Because now you can go from Dubai to Turkey and you can have direct flights to everywhere in Africa. That's also one of the things. So you can see we have a fragmented market that exists everywhere that starts with payment. We can see it in distribution, even for a book. We can see it also in flights, in transport. So that's one of the challenges that exist. I think the only hope for Africa is the diaspora, I think. Not because I'm one of the diaspora, but because those are expert people who have been seeing how things are moving outside. And I think with time, they will start returning to build a better continent. I think that's to some extent, that's where it is right now.
And that's what we're building here at Flashpay. So we're trying to simplify how people pay. Quick commercial break. But I think you nailed it. The problem is beyond just payment, right? I just use that as a catch there. But Everything is fragmented. I'm traveling, a lot of flights do not connect. I have to fly from this country to another country before I go to this country, and then I have a layover. So
And the flight is $1,000, it's $500. It's expensive.
It's more expensive, right, to navigate through Africa than here in Europe. Or, yeah, to be honest, the money I've spent, that I've spent booking flights,
Yeah.
I could easily travel to America and come back with it, and it's much longer flight. I can travel to Australia with it and then be back, and yet I'm just visiting a couple of countries in Africa.
Yeah.
But I notice, as you said, indeed, the diasporans are best positioned to build these solutions, because we kind of have the best of both worlds. We experience the challenges in Africa, and then we experience a great, or I'd say better society in Europe or in America or in other parts of the world. So the best thing, just like the Chinese, copy what works, right? And then come and tailor it to the markets. The key phrase is tailor, because it's very important not to just copy any generic thing and then bring it into the market and hope it would work.
If you are close to the government, you can certainly do that. If the government is trying to push in a few things, that's great. Like Rwanda, for instance, pushed cashless transport solution, cashless payment. They pushed it, and it worked fine. It worked great.
Yeah.
Because also they brought like a company, like basically one of the Rwandan companies were working on that, and they tried to push that. And then COVID also accelerated that, but now that exists.
How does corporations play a role here? Because sometimes we don't leave everything to the government, right? Like collaboration between different corporate organizations, be able to achieve things sometimes even faster when it comes to building, but distribution, government always wins when it comes to that, using regulation. But how does corporate influence, I'd say, rapid development?
I'm not sure that I have a great example of that. I think the only example that I recognize of a corporate who have been pushing things is, I don't remember the name, but it's a company built by Mo Ibrahim, who was trying to push feature phones across the continent. And that's the only case where I can see a corporation who have been pushing things and have been trying to do proper lobbying. And Mo Ibrahim now have Mo Ibrahim Foundation, and he have been basically very vocal about governance and corruption and all of the things, all of the political problem that we have. So, but then when you take, and why I cannot remember such cases is basically because we ran through monopolies. And you have two models, like you have oligopoly and you have monopoly. Monopoly is when one company is leading everything, and oligopoly when you have few sets of companies who are leading this. And usually when you have oligopoly, at least you have a certain competition. When you have a monopoly, you don't feel incentivized to even fight. Like think about payment, for your case, payment and banks. If we consider payment and banks are a certain oligopoly that exists in Nigeria, and they are trying to compete. So everyone is trying to bring fintech all together. And this is why they are investing in it, because they want to be the leader of the market. But if you had only this, let's say the National Bank of Nigeria, I don't know if that exists or not, but let's suppose that it exists, and it's only one bank, they will not be incentivized even to fight. Yeah. They will not be incentivized to create fintechs. Why should I care? So you have that exists to some extent, where at some point corporation in Africa move from being a corporation to become a certain administration. They become like a certain similar to civil servant.
Mafia.
Yeah. But also they become lazy by nature, because you don't need to innovate. Why should you need to innovate? Other than the CEO is very smart and wants to grow the company, but other than that, other than having skin in the game and other than trying to change the country, nobody is incentivized to do that. So I cannot certainly blame them, but yeah, but that's some of the understanding that exists, I would say, and we need to care about it. Corporations are certainly pushing few things. There are other companies now, I'm thinking about them. They have been trying to push even open innovations, but usually those are few examples here and there, and even companies are also learning, like not all companies have CSR, for instance, corporate social responsibility. So you can see where even the companies are still advancing and still trying to help better, let's say, the society also around them.
But I'd like to give shout out to companies that are actually pushing for like a connected Africa. One of them is, using traditional banking is PAPS. I don't know if you've heard of PAPS, no. Pan-African Payment Settlement System. They have made significant progress so far, and I know a couple of friends as well that are building something similar to that, and some are building using stable coins. But this is good.
This is a company or this is an association?
It's kind of an association of like central banks across multiple countries, and then multiple banks across the continent coming together in order to build something like a SEPA, SEPA for handling settlement across Europe. Yeah. So
yeah, I think on this specifically, I think this is a good and bad thing. However, with time, what's happening is that we are having those associations that are coming from the private sector, and they are coming from startups and corporations because they feel the need to do it. So think about this, perhaps think about AVPA, like the African Association of Venture Capital, etc. So AVCA. When you think about them, usually it's like, basically, it's different investors who decided to create an association, or different banks who decide to create an association. So at some point, I think I'm not saying some blame on the, but also we have a place that is missing, and bit by bit we are trying to build it to some extent.
Yeah, I don't want to get political, to be honest, in this conversation.
I think when you talk about economy, you talk about politics.
That's true. It's hard to remove it. It's hard to run away from. Cut. But like the stablecoin, we're seeing a rise of stablecoin when it comes to handling like payment across Africa, and I think it's a good thing. For example, we have Yellow Card. We have a good friend of mine at Ubuntu Tribe. They're doing something similar, starting from South Africa. They're in Nigeria now, and I think perhaps a couple of other countries. But my final question is, what should I, like, what question were you expecting that I should have asked that I didn't ask?
Yeah, I think one of the questions, I don't know if, if I answer this, should I answer my own questions or not?
Technically.
But yeah, I think one of the questions that I usually want to ask people is usually around their why. It's why they are doing what they are doing. And I think that's a very important question to ask, even for someone who is building a company, or even for an artist, or even for any person, is to ask what is the thing that is motivating them to be able to do, and to be able to wake up every day and to say, okay, let me do this, instead of doing the most normal thing, which is not most normal in this economy at least, but also going to get a job and pushing. Because by the end of the day, you are taking, I think,
huge risks.
Yeah, I think we are still taking, at least in this room, we are still taking a lot of risks in what we are doing, and I guess more people should be more able to handle risks and to take risks. But yeah, risk taking. There is this author that I like, and this guy that I like. It's called Nassim Nicola Taleb, and he have a lot of books. And one of the things he was saying is like, risk taken is an activity, not one single event. And if you did not take risks in your life, it's very similar to smoking. Smoking, like your grandmother comes to you and says to you, smoking kills or smoking is bad, not because it's a one single event. It's because of the activity itself. And usually people, sometimes when you hear people usually working in corporations and corporations especially, and consultancy company, big firm, one of the things that they say, think that is like there is one single event where somehow everything will change for them and they will decide to quit their job, etc. But usually it started bit by bit, and I hope more people are doing more risk taking and trying to do really what they want to do, because we only live once.
Yeah, that's also true. The thing is, you need to be able to let go of the fear of failing in order to be able to build something. And a lot of times, right, it's quite challenging. It's a huge challenge to build something substantial. Not a lot of people are prepared to do that. Even the people that are doing it, I'd argue that a lot of times they are not prepared to build it, to do that. They face challenges that they had never see coming. But
yeah, you do it afraid. Most of the time, you do it afraid.
Yeah.
Like this is sometimes I was thinking this is something that I write in my newsletter. I was thinking that I'm very anxious and like I have anxiety, and anxiety cannot is taking me down, etc. But then I realized, wait, someone with anxiety would not be in the middle of Kenya trying to do due diligence for one of the entrepreneurs. Like it's at some point, I think you feel anxiety more when you start going to what makes you anxious. Otherwise, you can numb that feeling and you can sleep at night.
Yeah.
I think this is where you feel it. And being someone who technically I never worked in my life, I've been always either starting companies or getting paid as an independent consultant, etc. Usually it's quite different, and it comes with its own challenges. But by the end of the day, I think it helps you also go and see the past, but you become proud of it. But also there is also this sometimes I think no one talks about this, which is we are less individualistic as African, and we are communal. And I think this is where also sometimes some of the expectations are on top of us. Like, I don't know, like our relationship with the family, with our friends, etc. It's much more, I don't know how can I say it, controlling to some extent, that also we have that burden of society on us. And this is why we have less artists from Europe, or we have less entrepreneurs, or I think, no, we have more entrepreneurs than Europe. When we think about the small shops, etc., certainly, like in terms of entrepreneurial activity, we are much more better in that. But sometimes it brings that burden of also trying either to be in the expectation or even to send money or something. So that's something also that sometimes the pure individualistic mindset cannot work with us, and certainly it takes a bit of time to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a good and it's good and bad at the same time, because it's always
like the good thing about communal societies, let's say, is that when you get, and this is like there is too much study around this and around culture, but one thing is basically communal society are good when you are at your worst. Because let's suppose that you don't have money. Now you have your family that can cover for you, and other people that will send you money, and other people that will support you. But then if you become rich, and I guess this exists also, I know Nigerians who told me that if you become rich, everyone will start calling you and say to you, send me money.
Yeah. So you identify that you have more distant cousins than you knew.
Communal societies, usually they are good. Like, we will not have homelessness of the US, because if you have a cousin who is homeless, you will try to help him, and you say, oh, maybe he's like, okay, let me support him and let me make sure we don't have that homelessness that exists. But then also, if you reduce that, now also we don't have the most like known people or the most rich people, etc. Other than Dangote, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I say it's like a double-edged knife. So like it cuts you, it can cut you in both ways. But thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking the time to join this first episode. And yeah, looking forward to our next. Probably I would love to have you more because there's a lot that we're supposed to talk about. And yeah, I think by that time I'll probably not be in Europe or in the coming months, but maybe when I'm back in Europe, or if you ever meet me somewhere in Africa, we can do like a quick one as well. So
hopefully all the success with your company and all the success with this podcast.
Yeah.
I hope I know that you have been working hard to make this work, and then yeah, I'm certainly happy to be in the first episode, and hopefully I'll be in the 50th episode.
It is my honor. It is my honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.